do we know for certain going after? Defensive tackle, wide receiver, right?
So, yeah, defensive tackle and wide receiver are the two positions where they're going after, like, by far the hardest. Like, even linebacker, as much as I know you and me both want a new linebacker,
Yep.
It's kind of like they've kind of slow-rolled that one. It's where unless it's like they want your D tackle or your wide receiver first, if you see a stud go in, they're off to the races and getting it. So, like, your three guys. And the wide receivers we haven't heard much about, at least this past week or kind of later in the week. It's kind of cooled down. But I think your main three guys are all defensive tackles with Simeon Barrow Jr. from Michigan State, Derek Harmon from Michigan State, and then Jared Harrison-Hunte from Miami. Now, an interesting one from yesterday who visited Florida State in the winter window was the linebacker Cam Riley from Auburn, decommitted from NC State last night.
Yeah.
So that one's interesting. Not hearing a whole lot on that front, but remember, that was an NC State FSU battle down the stretch.
I was just about to say, wait a minute. The only reason that's interesting is that it was NC State or us. We lost out to NC State. A lot of frustration amongst Florida State faithful in that moment. Listen, I'm not going to hide it. I've been critical of the linebacker room. I've been critical of the linebacker coach. I've been critical of Florida State's position at linebacker for a couple of years now. They've had guys that have been pretty good players, but they have not been elite. And I feel like at Florida State, you have the opportunity at linebacker to be elite if you want to be. I'm not saying this guy changes the world for Florida State, but do we suspect now that he decommitted from NC State that Florida State would be number one on his list? Have you spoken to him?
So I spoke to him briefly last night when the draft was going on and stuff. He told me FSU had not contacted him yet, and that was literally maybe an hour after he decommitted. So again, let's give it a little bit of time. I'll probably reach back out to him sometime today. At that point, he said no one else had actually contacted him. The school we are kind of hearing there is UCF, which came out of nowhere to me. That was news to me. But it's, again, Florida State, if they want this one, you would think they could have it just because they already have the relationship built. You're already there. Like, you already had the visit. Like, you don't really need to do much there. At least you wouldn't think so.
Elijah Herring. We're on that position. Let's talk about it. Yay, nay?
Seems like nothing has happened. He visited, but what's weird though is that he also hasn't done much. He visited Colorado right when he entered, and now he hasn't done anything this whole week, and now he's visiting Kansas State. But
so this is the kid, for people that don't know, Matt, this is the kid from Tennessee, right? The linebacker, sideline to sideline, 70-plus tackles a year ago. Their leading tackler. He's huge, by the way, by our standards. 238 pounds, can really go. What gives? We're not interested?
I think it's like I said, it's more of the D tackle and the wide receiver, that if those are the ones they want to get first. And I think personally, it's probably because the linebacker room did show improvement over the spring. And honestly, in my opinion, probably the most improved position group. So they kind of fell off the board a little bit. They just want, they can get a stud D tackle and a stud wide receiver, and that's all they do this portal window, I think they're happy.
Do they exist in this window, though? I don't. This particular cycle of the portal. This is not an elite group crop of players. So, in your opinion, based on who they've been targeting, I'm moving over to wide receiver now.
Yep.
Is this a situation, because there is no Keon Coleman in the portal this cycle? Is this a situation where you want to take a kid, even a kid from like a lower level? I always use Marshall as my example, like just some school like that where a kid's played a lot, ton of catches, an experienced football player, but not an earth shaker, not a first-round pick, not a guy that people are going to be, wow, because you could get a guy with that experience to help even out that room that has a bunch of guys that have never had to do it.
Yeah, so with that, like there was, if I could find his name on here, there was one kid from Colorado State that kind of stood out there that kind of fit that mold, like wide receiver that I like, who, again, I think they're targeting, but I haven't really heard much on the wide receiver front in the back end of the week. Elijah Badger from Arizona State. I know you and Tom have talked about him. I feel that kid is like perfect for this offense. At Arizona State, they used him from the run game. He had 11 carries for 51 yards, I believe, there. And then obviously he was really good as a receiver, and he even returned kicks. Like, this was an all-around kid. He's coming from Kenny Dillingham's offense, which isn't too different from Mike Norvell's offense. Like, I just felt like in general that was a perfect fit there.
Is that somebody they're going after? Is it somebody they've talked to? Do you know?
It is someone they've talked to. From what we've heard, it's someone they've talked to. But again, that was in the front end of the week. The back end of the week, haven't heard much.
All right. Any other receivers to tell us about that you think they've talked, well, that they've talked to, or that they'd be interested in based on what you're hearing?
The one that we kind of heard about early on was Auburn wide receiver Jay Fair from Rockwall Heath, Dallas, Texas, originally. Again, not really much there right now. I think that's kind of your lower on the board if you can't get anyone. I kind of get the feeling that right now they're still waiting to see if a stud will enter, something more will happen, right? Because also, yes, that you can't enter the portal after the 30th, but you can still commit and sign and all that kind of stuff. So if you can get that one guy to enter on the 30th or sign his paperwork on the 30th, and then I think he won't actually be in the portal until 48 hours later, because that's how long the paperwork and all that kind of stuff takes. So you could see that stud wide receiver enter there, and then it's off to the races. I just feel like it's no one who's like that, not Keon Coleman level, but even a little bit below, who's kind of really, really caught their eye yet.
It's interesting to hear that because everybody thinks, and for good reason, man, we're all new to this right now in terms of the transfer portal and the marketplace and what money goes where and why. It does appear to me, talking to folks in collectives, that, look, you're going to always overpay for a defensive tackle because everybody needs them.
Yep.
Everybody wants a stud wide receiver too, and you're probably going to overpay there. The only other position where you'd pay more for a guy is a quarterback. Everybody knows you're going to have to pay quarterbacks. If you're in need of a quarterback, you're probably going to have to pony up. But those are the positions, right? Offensive line is also on that list. I think it's fascinating that each of these cycles, we've kind of learned that there's a chance that if you just wait it out and it makes everybody uncomfortable, there's a real good chance your favorite team out there is talking to somebody who's on edge, is contemplating, isn't sure, would like to know what kind of offers he would have. He's not going to just willy-nilly put his name out there in the portal just to do it. We're watching kids mature at the same time we're all figuring this out and covering it. I think it's fascinating. It used to be everybody floods the portal. I'm putting my name in there. Well, man, you're on Front Street at that point. You just told everybody that you're unhappy where you're at. You just told everybody that you'd be happy to go somewhere else. Kids are wising up. They're like, well, maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I don't have another home. Maybe the grass isn't greener. Maybe the money's not as good as I thought it was going to be. So I'm not real sure. But that doesn't mean they're not talking to teams, and that's what you're getting at. There could be somebody out there, and we're speculating, could be somebody out there that Florida State's talking to. We'll see. Maybe convince them that put your name in. There's a home for you.
I mean, while you were saying that, I thought of the analogy of it's like when you already have a girl at a bar and then you kind of see another hot girl across the way and you're like, but I want to go talk to this girl, but I kind of got a chance to get home with this one right now. So like it's kind of like that. Yeah,
it's tough. And you can't let the other one know. Like, how do I engineer this? I'm going to go to the bathroom right now. Maybe a little word over here. I'll keep it walking. See, I hear you. It's been years. I've been married for 20 years, but I get you. I was in college once. That's a fair analogy and perfectly suited for a man your age. I appreciate you did that. All right. Any other things we should know going into the weekend? Because the last time I'll talk to you before some probably big news happens. Next time will be on Monday, maybe. Anything that you want to just speculate about, throw out there that you think, this could happen, I'd be interested, or for people to pay attention to over the weekend anyhow?
I will say, I think, so in general, I think the weekend's going to be a little more chill. Like the Michigan State kids, one of them graduates today, and he's going to be at Miami both of them are actually going to be at Miami on Monday. So, I mean, and Florida State's pushing for the last visit for both. In my mind, you're already in Florida. I feel like it's easy to take that trip up to Tallahassee. The one, again, I'm really watching is that Miami defensive lineman, Harrison-Hunte. I think they have the best chance at him because I think if you're talking money-wise or NIL-wise, I think you can get him at a little cheaper price point because he doesn't have the production of these Michigan State guys. And he's still good. I'm looking at like Kane Sport, Miami boards kind of stuff. They all really liked him, and they didn't want that guy to leave. As much as they might say on Twitter.
How did this come about, Matt? I mean, nobody was talking about that all that long ago. A couple of days ago, nobody thought that was coming. Where did that come from?
I wish I knew. Maybe it's the girl at the bar thing we were just talking about.
Well, screw Miami is what I'll say. So there you go. Not really worried about it. I do like to know that they care about him and that they like him, and it'd be cool if he left and came here, I suppose.